On this week's show, we are going to forego our usual format to bring you something special. That's right. It is time for yet another developer deep dive. It is our incredible honor to be joined by Adam Volker, creative director of Flight School Studios, here to tell us all about Creature in the Well, an electrifying pin-brawler title that will absolutely charm the pants off of us over here on Duel Screens. So grab your charging tools or your wooden cooking spoon, or ignore that ominous voice from the well, because things are about to get deep. Pinballs deep. This is Nintendo Duel Screens episode 118. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Nintendo Duel Screens episode 118. And hopefully you are actually listening to this in numerical order and we didn't have to skip 117 because of scheduling issues. So if this is really 117 and I'm saying 118, it's the truth. It really is episode 118. Welcome to Nintendo Duel Screens, sponsored by meltedpins.com. We'll talk to you about that later. I am one of your hosts, Stephen Fontana, and with me, as always, each and every week, he is Andy Asimakis. How are you, Andy?
I am so hype for this episode.
Yes.
It's been in the works, I think, in my mind, since April of this year, since PAX East.
PAX East, yeah.
I was like, this Adam guy.
Pretty much.
Gotta get this jackass on the show at some point.
We gotta get this...
Amazing.
Yeah, the way that whole thing came about was actually funny. So we'll get into that when we get into the whole big topic of everything. But yes, we do have Adam with us. How you doing, Adam?
I am doing very, very, very well.
Thank you so much for taking your time to come on here and talk to us. We as I had said before, we met you at PAX East. Andy apparently ran through the show floor demo faster than anybody has ever seen.
That's right.
Remember that? Yeah.
Setting records.
Wait, you're done? Yeah, I'm done.
Breaking hearts and setting records.
So yeah, we've had our eyes on this. I mean, we had our eyes on it beforehand, which is why we made the appointment. But after seeing it and getting hands on with it, it was a must-have for us. So I'm very, very happy. We are both very, very happy that you're here to discuss the process and your career and everything else that went into Creature in the Well. So for those of you that are new to Nintendo Duel Screens podcast, this is an interview show where Andy and I bring on an industry guest to talk indies and Nintendo's past, present, and future. Nintendo Duel Screens posts each and every Monday for your listening pleasure on your podcast service of choice, including our YouTube channel, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. And you could also, of course, find the show on duelscreens.com. You can support us on Patreon by going to patreon.com/NDS podcast, just like our Patreon producer. He has been demoted. He is no longer a demigod. He is back down to Grandmaster. He is Alex Gonzalez. Thank you, Alex, for all of your support. We do appreciate it. And thank you to all of our patrons who support us. Even if you support us as little as $1, we appreciate every little thing helps. And remember that $1 gets you into our secret Discord channel and a bonus episode every single month that you vote the topic on. You can be part of the show by emailing us your comments, questions, concerns at feedback@ndspodcast.com. I haven't given that email address in a while. I've been skipping that.
It's all concerns. It's all concerns.
Right. Stop.
It's like spam, delete, spam.
Spam, complaint, spam. Fact check, spam. Okay. All right, so let's just dive right in, man. So as I had mentioned, in PAX East, we were making our appointments, and the game Creature in the Well, I don't remember how it came across our desk. I don't know if it was during the Kind of Funny Games showcase, the first one they did. I don't really remember the timing of everything. Andy, do you remember how?
I think the initial email said unannounced game by Flight School Studio. That was like the initial blurb, and I was like, it's got to be that Creature in the Well game that we saw at that indie showcase like a week or two back.
Interesting.
So I was like, I'm gonna lock this in and roll the dice and see what happens. And
Yeah. I think
yeah.
I think like because East and GDC were overlapping this last year, or like the appointments were going out pretty early. It was like our announcement was at the Nintendo Direct at GDC, but we were trying to like queue
Got
stuff
it.
up way early, so that overlap probably is where the confusion is coming from. But
Got it.
Oh
would be my
yeah.
guess. Would be my guess.
I recall getting appointments for GDC. Like, great, I'm not going to Germany.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah, put me down for 2:00.
Yeah, 2 p.m. Germany time. All right, so just to dive right in, let's get into your career that led you up to Creature in the Well. How did you start in the video game development industry, as it were?
Man. Oh man. Okay, so I guess I've been working for about 10.1 years, 11 years. My first job was in 2008 in Austin, Texas. I worked at a now non-existent company called Midway Home Entertainment. They were the creators of Mortal Kombat. Actually, they did great work in like the arcade days, Rampage and
Sure.
Cruisin' and all that sort of stuff. I worked there in Austin for a total of 2 weeks. I drove everything that I owned down from Minneapolis, where I'm from, and drove to Austin, and I got let go, and the company just shut down.
Wow.
It was horrible. I was living on my buddy's couch. Luckily, my buddy was working at BioWare, and he's like, well, we could use some contract art. And so I worked there for a spell on the Star Wars MMO.
Oh.
Which if you all played that, I did a lot of the control panels. That's me. It's all me. Those buttons.
Best part of the game, hands down.
We got a veteran in our midst.
But that was only a contract gig. So I ended up in Louisiana, Shreveport, Louisiana, making short films and whatnot, and apps and other things like that. And then that lasted about 8 years. Holy moly!
Wow.
Holy moly, Louisiana. It was really great, though. We won an Academy Award in 2012 for a short film.
Oh my God, we're talking to an Academy Award winner.
No wonder why it was hard to nail down a time for this thing. Like, who does this guy think he is? Doesn't he know I got kids?
I got my Academy Award, and these two losers.
Listen,
on my timetable.
Listen, Adam, you are speaking to a Down Beach Film Festival 2011 Best Actor recipient. Okay, so don't.
The presence of greatness.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. See, Andy, where are your accolades, sir?
Oh, my accolades! I think it was a longest fart, 2019.
Wow!
Courtesy of my bedroom this morning.
Guinness Book of World Records fart.
Yes. Get in there.
I actually hesitated about whether I was going to bring that up or not. So I'm glad you laid into me for it.
It's perfect.
I'm glad I did. The sour grape. What's the opposite of a silver lining? The opposite of whatever that is that company.
Shower?
That company is also now bankrupt.
Wow, what are you, an albatross? What the hell's going on over there?
It's gone now. It was a beautiful time. Made lots of great friends, but that company is no longer exists either. And at the end of that, some people that I knew and worked with were like, "Hey, we're getting together with a group in Dallas. We're going to start this new thing. It's called Flight School." And I was like, "Sounds great. Let's move to Dallas." And Flight School started in 2017 January, and then it expanded up to Montreal, Quebec, because its parent company was also expanding up to Montreal, Quebec. And so we were like, let's make a game and move up there. And they're like, great, do it. And we're like, here's our idea. And they're like, great, do it. And that idea was Creature in the Well.
Whoa. So, okay. Well, I have to, I have to mention the elephant in the room. So you worked for two companies that went belly up. So
How long does Flight School have is what you're asking me.
Well, no. Yes, and also, how do you continue in an industry or in the type of industry where it's so delicate that companies can one project can make or break a company. Really, honestly, it really can. Like if you look at all different walks of life, a record label, if they have this huge project or whatever, like television stations, streaming networks, like all these things can just pour money into stuff, make this project, and then the project fails or whatever, or poor management. On the case of like Telltale, like those games, were pretty okay, but then they overextended themselves, and then a ton of people that were hired en masse essentially just were out of a job. Were you ever hesitant to continue doing this, to get into another company, especially one that's a startup, essentially?
Yeah. Yeah. The genuine answer is yeah. You're always a little nervous, like seeing the pattern and seeing like the industry around you. But I think I still gotta pay rent.
Sure.
And,
yeah.
I still got a bunch of student loan debt. Bunch of that. And so it's kind of like, well, these are my options. So I took it, and it's turned out to be a great job. And so I'm gonna ride it and keep making stuff as long as I can. That's the total honest answer. Like I wasn't sitting on a lot of opportunity, I guess is what I'm saying.
Sure.
I applied a bunch of places after the Louisiana company called Moonbot was sort of falling apart, and I didn't get a lot of interest. I don't know, for whatever reason. And so like these were the opportunities I had, and I took them. Really is the genuine answer. And if it falls apart again, then it does, and I'll do that again.
But you never thought of just getting out of it and pursuing like it never scared you to the point where you didn't want to do it at all anymore? I
have no other employable skills. So
fair enough.
That sounds very familiar.
So like I have had that thought, but like I wouldn't know where I would go, to be honest.
Sure. Well, Starbucks has great benefit plans.
I'm gonna keep that one in my back pocket. Then that'll be my plan D.
So let's talk about young Adam. Let's talk about what got you into gaming in general. What are some of your earliest memories as a young gamer?
The earliest ones were like Super Mario World, Mario like 2 when you turn into a raccoon and you flew, like Excite Bike. No, what was the game? Yeah, maybe it was Excite Bike. I was playing on NES at my buddy's house. I didn't actually own one. And the SNES was the first console I played. When I played Link to the Past, I was like, games are the best.
Games are going to be a problem.
That's all it took.
F-Zero, played a lot of F-Zero. Yeah.
So
that's earliest.
So when you were growing up, you said that you didn't have an NES. So SNES is the first console that you physically owned yourself. Was that a gift? Was it something that like you saved lunch money for or whatever? Like I used to shave money off the top of my lunch money and put it in a piggy bank so I could buy toys and stuff at the end of the week. But like, what was that like for you? How'd you come about
that? Was a gift for sure. And my dad and I played a lot together. He was really into Mario. But it was a gift. Like I don't actually know, like if you want to fact check me, like when all that stuff came out. I'm 33 now, so I don't think I was old enough to have money on the scale that I would have needed, to buy a Super Nintendo.
I think that's accurate. That
definitely was a gift. I don't know how I talked my parents into it, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're the same age, so I got a Super Nintendo because my older brother, who's 5 years older, he got it as a Christmas gift. So he was 5 years older at that point. I believe I was 5, so he was a 10-year-old. He got it as a gift, whatever. Like, no, I would never expect a 5-year-old to be able to, like save money. But when I was in junior high,
hell of a 5-year-old.
Yeah, when I was in junior high, like I saved lunch money, birthday money, whatever money I could get, and the first console I ever bought with my own money was a Nintendo 64, and that was in 1990. I think it was in 98 that I bought it for myself. I want to say, but yeah, it's always fascinating to see like how people get into gaming as a young kid. Like you said, you had a cousin or a friend that
a
friend had the NES. So was this? Did you go out of your way to try and play it, or was it just something that was there that you knew you can do when you were there?
Yeah, a bit. Man, hard to know at this point. I think it was kind of like, so growing up in Minneapolis, like when it's wintertime, you ain't doing a lot outside. So I think it was probably that. Like we'd go over to his house, and what we would do is play games.
Awesome.
And that's where he sunk those long winter nights.
Did you see yourself like from a young age at one point saying to yourself, one day I'm gonna make video games? Like we'll put you on that path into the games industry, as it were.
I didn't. That was an accident in college. I went to Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida, sunny Sarasota, Florida. And I was the arts kid in high school, but didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. So when I applied to college, I wanted to go into animation because Pixar was hot shit at the time.
Oh, massive. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, oh my God, Nemo, somebody made this, you know? I think like Toy Story was 95. I went to college in 2004. So like they had some time to like really build a solid rep. Anyway, I applied to be there in their 3D animation program. And I got a call from a recruiter that was like, well, you're not good enough, but we can put you on the wait list or any of the other majors.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I'm paraphrasing.
How does dance theory strike you?
But I was literally on the phone because I was a dumb high school kid. I was on the phone playing Warcraft 3 with this recruiter, and I was looking at the HUD of that game, and I was like, "So, do artists make video games?" And she's like, "Yeah. Lots of our graduates go on to work in video games." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And she's like, "Yeah, our graphic design major." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And so I just fucking signed up for that. And then I went to college and I like found out that is not at all what I wanted. And I, saw like the seniors at the time, the graduating seniors were doing an art show and they were in illustration and they were painting and they were drawing. And I was like, this is super cool. So I switched majors. And then by the time I graduated, I kind of had decided gaming was more what I wanted to do than animation.
Oh, wow. So you came back to it. Like, first it was, all right, this seems like a good fallback. Like, yeah, sure,
Yeah.
I'll totally do this. Like, good idea. and then you find your way back to it. It's kind of neat how that all worked out.
Yeah.
So let's get into Creature in the Well.
Cool.
We love it to death. I posted a review this morning on our website. Raved about it. Raved.
Awesome.
So give us and our listeners the elevator pitch, as it were, for Creature in the Well.
So Creature in the Well is a top-down hack-and-slash pinball game where you play as Bot C, who is the last remaining engineer of a ancient robot collective, who's trying to restore power to a weather facility that he doesn't quite know the purpose of. And it's housed inside of a mountain, inside of a town that's inside of a giant planet-covering sandstorm. Inside of that weather facility, you come across a being, a monster, a creature, if you will, who has set its will against you to stop you from completing the task.
One of the things that struck me as I was going through the beginning, I think I'm in the second full stage, I guess you would say, after the first time that you beat the creature, that you fight the creature. That's about where I am. But the thing that struck me the most is that you set a tone. Almost a duality. There's almost like a duality going on with the tone because some of the townspeople and the bot himself are sort of, they're a little goofy. Like they have like a lightness to them. Even the creature, when it's speaking to you, has a little bit of a lighthearted tone. But if you look around what's going on, it's complete desolation. It's complete isolation. It's almost eerily calm. And that was something that struck me right away when you booted up. How did you come to that decision? Where did you come to a decision where you're going to make something that was going to be almost scary? Almost. It's kind of. I felt like it was almost a commentary of like what could happen, if we stay on this arid path of destruction.
Yeah. like mood and tone are really important to Bo and I feel like we really wanted to make the player feel isolated. That I'm so glad you brought up the sort of like cautionary tale part of it, because it's about being isolated, right? It's about like people who are stuck in this town of Mirage for so long inside of the sandstorm that they don't know what the color of the sky is, and they don't know what an ocean is or a tree or anything that exists outside of their bubble. And the creatures obviously try to keep it that way, but like you being a player and the bot being curious is like the first step to like sort of getting people out of that. Curiosity is like super important. And so we put you in like right when you start the game, like you're right on the title menu, you're already playing. And then when you start a new game, you're like in the desert. And yeah, it was really like, let's put you in the biggest sort of thing we can while we're, make you feel as isolated as possible.
So speaking of the duality here of the characters and the actual setting,
Right.
you also got two genres here colliding in this game. You
Right.
have dungeon crawling and you got pinball, and you mash them together essentially effortlessly. Where did that concept come from?
Totally. So we started the game. We're always prototyping. Like when we're starting new ideas, it's not just like we've got an idea, it's on paper, and we execute exactly what it is. And the prototype we built for Creature, or what turned into Creature, was more like an air hockey, like a Windjammers type of game. It was a multiplayer game, and what we had built wasn't quite as interesting as we thought it was going to be. And when we started to try to make it better, we put pylons in the middle of that air hockey game, which had third-person controls of like, so you were a player character and you were hitting a ball with a bat. But then when we put pylons in it, we're like, oh, that's actually kind of like Plinko and kind of like Pinball and kind of like Breakout. And the number of other games that we were finding we could reference was a lot. And we were like, wonder if we could make a game out of all of that instead. So we built some puzzles. We tested them at the studio. People liked it. We built more puzzles. We put the puzzles together. We made a dungeon. And we're like, oh, shit, we probably could do that. So that's kind of where it pivoted into the game that it is now. But it's that stickball court is what we called the game when we started. Stickball is is in town still. We put like that first map in the middle of Mirage.
Oh, is that what all those sticks are? Like the
you can knock
and
the ball
stuff.
around.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I was wondering. I thought that was there to just kind of like teach you like the physics of the ball and like kind of how it moves around in the space. But that's actually that's a really cool.
You see,
Easter
I was
egg.
right to call you a jackass, because I was like, this has to be some sort of secret,
Yeah.
like another temple somewhere. I was like,
Hell yeah.
it must do something.
Hell yeah.
One of my biggest takeaways from this game was the gameplay is just so satisfying. You wouldn't imagine a dungeon crawler pinball hybrid to play so well, or would be this amount of fun, but it is. What was it like to get the gameplay so nailed down and tight for Creature in the Well?
Just a grueling process. I have to give that credit to Bo. I mean, he's the guy who really dialed that. He's the engineer on the team. Our core disciplines are kind of like art and engineering, with a lot of overlap on everything in the middle. But character controller and like he even did the character animation and how much those tie together. Cooldowns on the dash and like interrupts for the strike tool and the chart. If you're charging, you know how it interrupts. All of that is just play testing and like just tweaking until it feels right. But I mean, yeah, that's probably one of the first and the last things we worked on. It took us forever to get down the two weapons. For the longest time, we're trying to give the player an ability. Like we had a gravity ability at one point where you could draw the ball towards you, which we scrapped because it just ended up being like a paddle ball game. For the longest time, like we argued about ball speed because it was like too fast and players just ended up chasing the ball around the room too slow, and it felt like you weren't really playing anything interesting. But yeah, that's a really difficult thing to get down. We were playing a lot of top-down third-person games, new and old, and sort of referencing like if we're going to put a dash in, which dashes do we like, which games feel good. Like a lot of studying of like the way the Smash community breaks down the animation. or fighting communities break down the animation of their of those games, like really doing a lot of studying about that stuff.
Yeah, and of course your wooden cooking spoon as well. You gotta have that.
Right,
Yeah,
obviously.
It's like a necessity.
of course.
I want to just go back to when, just really quickly, about when you said that you were making one type of game and then you kind of mashed it all together and then eventually came up with this concept. About how much time went from when you were figuring out what you want to do to saying, oh, this is the game we're going to make?
Yeah. I think we probably like 2/3 of the way through development before we found the game.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And let me expand on that, because the multiplayer part was maybe only a few months. And then we were like, okay, it's probably not that. And then we were going to make the game roguelike for a really long time. And we had, if you've been playing it, like what we call the lobby, where there's like the pillars and you strike the pillar to open the door. It was a point where we had a bunch more of them. I don't remember how many we had, but we had a bunch more of them. And what players were doing was you had to hit 2 of them. And then what combined was generating a dungeon of rooms. And the combinations were like over 50. And the number of potential things was like, it's just so many. And then we were like, that'll be fun because players can plant seed values and stuff. But what everyone was like, just like overwhelmed when we would tell them that. They're like, I don't really stop. I hate it. I hate that. And we were like, oh, really? Okay. And players wanted to explore dungeons. They wanted to map them. We found that like finding secrets, if it was going to get generated and you couldn't go back to find the branch that you were on, was frustrating, not interesting.
Right.
So that was a thing we held on to for a long time. And then the last big change was kind of like about the depth of the puzzles, because we had built maybe a couple dungeons and we were pitching to publishers, and publishers were like, no thanks, pass. And we're like, well, what? Why? And they're like, we're not sure. You have a whole game.
Those sirens are on my end, by the way, folks, so don't pull over your car.
Okay.
In trouble. Sorry.
They were like, we don't think you have like a full experience here. We think you have like a really cool demo. And I'm like, shit, they're right. And so that, we went back to the drawing board and added a bunch of mechanics. Bo added a bunch of new puzzle, like bunch of different kinds of bumpers, and then we expanded the game, and then we were able to make enough dungeons, and then like that's probably when we started making the game, and as is. It's always so late in the game. It's always so late in production.
Yeah, I applaud that, because I feel it may be easier to do like, okay, we'll have things that are auto generated, or just we'll let the game create our levels for us in a sense, but to actually handcraft your own maps and levels and knowing that things are put there for a very specific reason, I think it just lends to what this game was all about. And even with like the fixed camera, even to me was huge, because I like
Awesome.
how it just pans and zooms in at certain points, like with the creature encounters.
Right.
It's trying to tell a nice story.
It was cinematic. Yeah, it's very cinematic when you're moving from room to. Yeah, exactly.
And it's all very deliberate. And I think that is, again, you can't achieve that with an auto generated map in a sense.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned the camera, because one of the things I would do when I built rooms was we'd have camera volumes in every room. So like when the player enters the box, the invisible box, that wherever the camera is blends to whatever camera I set. So I was able to make shots as sort of like I would compose a shot like you would in film for that room, and then like as the dungeons got put together, the camera would blend between them. And I'm so glad you've called that out, just because like even coming from a film background, what I would do on the short films and stuff we would make was storyboarding and art direction. So like shot making is really, really fun for me to do. I'm glad to be able to do that in gaming still.
Well, speaking of art direction, that's a good
segue. There you go.
Because this game is freaking gorgeous to look at.
Sirens are still on my end.
Yeah,
that's the popo,
No,
man. They're going.
like,
they're getting somebody.
Sound the alarm. We got a sexy ass game on our hands. I think one of the first things, like when the first trailer hit, like I didn't see a slice of gameplay, but when I saw the art style, I had to stop. It's very arresting when you see that very unique looking kind of
Awesome.
graphic styling. So talk about your inspirations and how did you settle on this particular art style for this game?
For sure. So I've done a lot of paintings at the beginning of the game, but none of them were very like had nailed it, and I was kind of like not sure how we were going to translate the paintings I'd done to 3D. They were super flat. I wasn't sure like if it was going to match the game really well. And as we were prototyping, like multi-ball, like the game is very frenetic and very like busy visually. When the gameplay, I mean, is like very busy visually, and so we needed to come up with something that was graphic to complement how naturally noisy the gameplay visually was.
Sure.
And so let me show you this. Like I've got a bunch of comic books here at my desk, and one of the ones that inspired it the most was Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy.
Oh,
And
Hellboy, yes.
and they're like literally right there. And so one day I'm just drawing and I'm like going like looking for inspiration and picked up the Chained Coffin is the one that's there, and just like looked at how he was simplifying color and light and shape and darkness. And we were like, well, our game's got a lot of that because it's in a mountain. And, if I can find a way that visually works to like hide a bunch of stuff, then it's a budgetary thing for us as well, being a small team. So I sort of pushed what I'd had towards his art and did my best Mike Mignola impression.
Man, that's like very Silent Hill.
Now, I want
We use the fog to mask our limitations here.
Yeah, totally.
And it still looks incredible.
Totally. Yeah.
I want to take a quick little pause from the action. I want to ask because I noticed when you turned your head away, your volume went down. So I don't know if you have your mic that's attached to your headphones selected. You might have your actual camera selected, and I
do. I don't think there's a mic on.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you weren't intending to do that. That was fine. Okay,
No, I wasn't.
No, it's fine. All right, so let's get back into this thing because we interviewed somebody that thought they had one mic selected almost the whole episode, and then changed in the middle. So, all right, Andy, continue on with your train of thought. I apologize.
You totally wrecked it. No, I'm kidding.
You blew it. Listen, this is what we are, man. We're an unedited, unfiltered. This is a conversation. This is what it's about.
Sirens and all.
We're all friends here.
Oh, what? You know what? And speaking about sound and audio.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Segue time. We're so good at this segue stuff, I swear to God. We're so goddamn good.
We're good at it.
The game's sound design is equally as minimalist, but it's also deeply moving at the same time. How there's like these very like somber notes, and there are times where I was like kind of getting choked up at some of the score.
Awesome.
So what went into composing this game's soundtrack?
So let's talk a bit about both of those things because they're so much fun to talk about. That's not Bo and I, first of all. The composer's name is Jim Fowler. He's an old buddy. Used to work at Sony London and now is a man of his own business. But we had to call him up because we worked together on a Sony Wonderbook title way back in the day called Diggs Nightcrawler, and he did an original jazz soundtrack for that game for us. And so we're like, we gotta call Jim back up, and just telling him what we were going for and telling him what our gameplay references were and stuff. He just nailed it. The piece I love the most is the piano piece from that you play in town.
Yeah, that's the one that gets me. That one
melodic.
Gets me every time.
It's so minimal and like quiet and pensive. And actually, he gave us like an alt version. It's kind of subtle, but like if you go to the Creature's Well, like we change it. There's more minor keys and stuff like that. So all of that is like real subtle musical stuff we're doing. He gave us all these stems for dungeon tracks. We layer it up when like the energy goes up when you fight the creature. It's awesome. And then the sound stuff is a guy from our flight school's headquarters in Dallas named Frank Pinninger, and he is not really a gamer, but just like dived into like the pinball electric hybrid, adding like these really brilliant rubber sounds and bells and electric charges and gyros. There's a scene that we kept talking about from The Empire Strikes Back where Vader and Luke are fighting in Cloud City, and he's trying to freeze him. And there's this sound, like when Vader's like trying to turn on the thing. And we watched this clip over and over and over, and we're like, just take that, pitch it down, and like it's in so many of the sounds. But my favorite thing that Frank came to the table with was the creature's voice, if that's the voice is the right word. We're like, we need a scream, we need like a bellow for the creature, but we don't want it to be human. It's not like a thing, it's not a person screaming down there. It's a weird creature. And so he's like, cool, let me think about it. And one day he emailed us a link, and he's like, I found somebody who recorded cactuses if they took a cello bow and drug it across the cactus. And that's the sound of the creature every time you hear it scream, like,
Oh, I
That's
can
a
hear it.
tactic.
I can legitimately hear it in my head right now.
yeah. And we were like, that's it, it's perfect. And then, of course he like messed with it and stuff, but like it was such a great find. And sound design is just one of the most abstract, coolest parts of making games.
And nothing more fitting than a cactus needle to
I know.
capture the voice of the creature in
I
this game.
know. And
He's a little bit of a prick.
Yeah. Hey,
Oh, we got jokes for days.
dry humor.
This is why you're here.
Oh, it's a
Woo!
oh, you are
I
so
love
one of us, Adam.
Don't be so prickly.
Speaking of prickly, I'm sure you had some major challenges, major hurdles along the way. Outside of just your normal game dev stuff. Were there any major hurdles that you had in your way that you could tell the listeners about?
I mean, we touched on a few of them, just about finding the game and getting the feedback that people like didn't think we had something. It's tough to talk about Creature too, because it is people, like use the word pinball. People have expectations. They're thinking Yoku. They're thinking pinball, and it is and it isn't that. So like it was always difficult to like elevator pitch the game before we had it figured out. That was probably one of the most difficult things, was to talk to people about it, trying to use like references to things that they could recognize so they could sink their teeth into it, but like also try to communicate that that we were going for something different. It's tough. Yeah.
It's a ricochet action physics game.
Yeah.
There you
Well,
go.
and funnily enough, like players gave us all the best one-liners. Pin-brawler came from our testers, our players. Pinball hack and slash came from our players and testers, because we would have to talk somebody into putting the headphones on and playing the demo, and then they would take off, be like, "Oh, it's like," and we were like, "Yeah, totally."
Nailed it.
Correct. That was our intention all along. Take notes.
Yeah, no, we totally were. Write that down.
What that guy said.
Yeah, that was a challenge.
Do you have this might be a harder question for you to ask, but we wouldn't be we wouldn't be having this interview if we didn't ask.
We wouldn't
this.
be us.
We wouldn't be us. Yeah. So do you guys plan on revisiting this world in the future? Was this a one-off situation? I know I'm not asking you to announce anything, but maybe in your desires or your intentions all along, did you always envision this as something that would be more than one game? Or is this kind of a one-off, now you kind of want to move on, do something fresh?
I'll say both. I think like there are mechanics we designed that we haven't used that I would like to find a way to put into extra more creature.
Sure.
I don't know what package that'll take, and it's going to kind of be about like the reception of the game after it's been out for a while, or is there enough people playing? It's kind of a business decision too. Like, is there an audience for that sort of content? And then the other answer is no, because because we've got other ideas and other games we want to make, and we're already cooking on what those are going to turn into, and they're all going to be weird mashups of things that shouldn't go together. So I think it's both. Like, I think there are still a lot left to do in the creature world, and then I think there's also a desire to move on. You do the best work on a game at the end of it, and so I think sequels are always way more dialed in and way more polished, and the developers know what they're making because it takes about the time of a production to figure out what the game even is. And then by the time you're finished and you've got to ship it, you're like, man, I could remake this really, really well right now. So I think that's part of why schedules always go on and on and on and on. And part of why sequels are always, not always, but sequels tend to be like a dialed in version of game one, right?
Sure.
That's like so nutty. It's like, what's next on the docket? I'll do this all over again.
Yeah.
So we do have a listener question. This is coming from one of our Patreon supporters, Kirsch, Mike Kirsch. He actually plays on stream with me most of the times when I'm playing on multiplayer games. Good dude. You already answered the first part of his question, so I'm going to skip that, but I'm going to go to the last part of his question, which was, what other genres of game would you like to mash together? So maybe don't give away the ones you're experimenting with, but what are some...
the one we're working on now? Yeah.
Right. So what other...
Don't tell him that.
Listen, we have to, you know... Kid gloves, Andy. Kid gloves. We don't want to get blacklisted in this industry.
Like a trick question.
It was almost a trick question. You're right.
Reveal all the secrets.
Yes, tell us everything.
You know what I could do is I could tell you about games that we made that I can't make anymore because some other person owns them in some other company that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, okay. This is the juicy exclusives.
And I won't be more specific about than that, but we at one point were making a strategy deck building game that was a competitive multiplayer game, which was really cool. Think like Into the Breach with cards.
Okay.
That was really fun, man. That was really, really fun to play. I really want to make a rhythm game, but that's as far as that idea goes.
My absolute favorite mashup of a rhythm game has to be Patapon. The rhythm RPG. Like, oh my god, that was one of those things that you also didn't know could be amazing until you get your hands on it.
So good. There's also a game that we were working on. I wonder if I can talk about it without talking about it. That was competitive mopping.
What?
Meets what?
Meets Shadow of the Colossus. So
okay.
You were cleaning up dirty monsters. Kind of like a Dust Force, but in 3D.
Monster cleaner.
You see, this is exactly why my review began with referencing the PS1 era of games, where developers were like completely unhinged. And they weren't scared to like make crazy wacky shit like Vib Ribbon or Devil Dice or Parappa the Rapper, games like that.
Yeah.
And like your game fits right in there.
Right.
And you could like go all the way with this and like make a bunch of like really awesome weird shit.
I know.
That will find the audience instantly.
Yeah.
I mean, competitive mopping.
I mean, part of what we do when we're starting ideas is like try not to go toe to toe with the devs out there that are really good at doing it already.
Sure.
I mean, that just seems dumb to us, right? Like, why would we make a Destiny or like, I don't know, like whatever's like happening and we played that's like really, really fucking great, even if it's a small dev. Yeah.
Or a Diablo clone. Also,
we're not going to go for that because like there's people out there crushing it already and they're professionals and there's hundreds of them in one studio doing it. Like, it's just not smart of us. So the only way we can stand out is by trying the weird stuff.
It affords you the chance to say you have the best pinball hack and slash on the market.
Right.
Like, anyone else?
Although I did somebody tweeted me Pinball Dungeon Crawler, a game on Apple, on iPhone, like a couple days ago. Someone tweeted me a game and circled that the description of it was Pinball Dungeon Crawler. And I was like, wow. It's grown already.
They cheated. I'm gonna see if this is on Google.
You're like a new Kojima.
Yeah.
Making his Strand genre, what the fuck that's supposed to mean?
Right.
You're making
Let me
fucking pinball dungeon crawling games, mopping games.
let me see if I can find it. And
Oh,
I'll
what
tell
the
you.
hell is this? Mystic Dungeon Old School Pinball?
Did you find it?
I mean, I found something that's called
I mean, that's got
Mystic
one
Dungeon
title.
Old School Pinball. It's 99 cents. And it says an N-A-N hardcore old school pinball. That's the description of the game.
Okay, the game I was talking about was called The Pinball Wizard.
The Pinball Wizard. Which,
It's on that
Andy, did you notice that in your
Yeah, that was in my little
in the review?
my notes in my review.
Yes. I added the little segue and / taglines in Andy's review, and I made references to the Pinball Wizard.
There you go.
It has to be a twist. It has to be. So we got some quick hits for you, Andy. I'm going to pitch these quick hit questions over to you.
Well, I think I'm doing it on the fly.
Okay.
I want to ask Adam, what is the creature in your well? Let's dive deep. Let's get emotional.
It's probably my
Let's open some old wounds.
probably like my art is probably the creature, the thing that like taunts me. I frequently lie awake at night thinking about I should have done that drawing better, or I need to remember to do this, or I need, like just being frustrated with the work that I've output recently. So that is always the eyes in the darkness watching me. It's my own art.
Mine's my mom's constant disapproval.
Yeah, wow.
It's everyone's.
Yeah.
That always looms very heavy. What are some of your favorite indie games currently?
Well, I'm hyped for Sayonara Wild Hearts. Speaking of
Yeah.
it,
Oh, you were tweeting about that. That's a great game.
no, I'm super hyped.
I'm not a stalker at all. Just saying.
That's fine. It's cool. What have I played indie stuff recently? Mostly AAA stuff recently. I love Into the Breach. Brought that up a bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Flint Hook. I liked last year. I played
That's
that.
a great game. Doesn't get enough love, I feel.
It's really hard. Like when you
Yeah.
get later in it. Didn't get very far actually. Yeah. Dang. I've not been really showing my fellow indies much love recently. What's my problem?
And I think our last quick hit would be, if you were given the chance to work on the classic Nintendo IP,
Ooh.
a la a Cadence of Hyrule scenario, which IP would it be and why?
There's nothing quick about this question, Andy.
No, it's not.
Yeah, can we stick to yes or no answers?
Just say yes. Yes.
Yes. The one that comes to mind is actually F-Zero, because I feel like racing games are kind of dominated by like Forza and Mario Kart.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's all you get. And I would love to take a stab at like redoing it. But they might be. Is somebody out there redoing that right now?
Not that we know of.
Nothing announced, but you never know with Nintendo.
Yeah, I would do F-Zero.
See, that was a quick answer. We bitched that before.
Would you do anything? Would you do anything different with it?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'd try to. It's up to Nintendo, I guess, if it would let us. But they did Cadence, so you're right. Maybe, yeah, I would think it would be cool to. So this is drawn from an old idea, so it's not totally like off the cuff. But we had this idea for a racing game that was akin to like Wacky Racers, that old Hanna-Barbera TV show.
Love that show.
Where there were two people in every car, and they was just kind of like trying to mess with each other. And we had this idea where one person was driving and one person was like real time changing the car, and they could add things like, the ability to jump or speed racer type stuff, like blades pop out the front, or like missiles or whatever. But to do it, you'd like take away some piece of functionality from the driver for a small amount of time while they did a mini game to upgrade the car. So it became this like, oh, I can only turn left now. Sort of, while you were adding a jump feature. And then if the engineer could finish it fast enough, they'd be like, oh, great, you can steer again. And then they would do pickups, and the pickups would give the engineer resources to then augment again. And so it was like a competitive thing where everyone's trying to get to the finish line, but like this cars are spinning and knocking into each other.
Sounds like the best F-Zero game ever, ever conceived.
Times 20,000, right, for the speed of F-Zero. I guess would be the pitch.
F-Zero Patience. That's what that game is called. Yeah. I think that wraps it up. I think we did.
That is a great place to end this.
I love
Awesome.
it. I love it. All right, let's do the little housekeeping, and then we'll get the hell out of here. Nintendo Dual Screens. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are part of the Proven Gamer Podcast Network, which includes Trophy Whores, a PlayStation podcast, Game Stuff, a general games discussion podcast, and PG Spoilers. Sorry. Which is a spoiler cast hosted by you, the listeners. That's right. You guys get involved and do a podcast and put it up there. A lot of fun. If you want to follow us on social media, you could do so. We are at NDS Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Batchild27. Andy is at Pantsky. And where can everybody find you, Adam?
I'm on Twitter at avolkertron.
avolkertron. That's pretty awesome. And where could everybody find all of the the Creature in the Well and all that other fun stuff on social media?
Sure. So on Twitter, Creature is under @CreatureWell. And then if you go to creatureinthewell.com, links to all the store places where you can purchase the game, join our Discord, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We did not do our ad read, so I want to make sure that I do that before we close the show. Usually we do it between segments, but we really didn't have any segments on this show, so we're just going to get right into this thing. Meltedpins.com. I mentioned at the top of the show. Meltedpins.com is a fantastic site made that has unique and original tattoo art inspired pins, buttons, and much more. Artist Kelsey Lynn, who is a member of Kind of Funny Best Friends. She's done art for us. She's done art for other podcasts and websites, and she even actually right now has one of her submissions for the Kind of Funny Extra Life t-shirt contest. Her t-shirt is actually up there. I believe it's the 5th one. I believe it's number 5. If you wanted to do that, I think it's kindoffunny.com/extralife, I think. But yeah, you can vote on that. But yes, if you go to meltedpins.com, you can check out all her cool designs and all her cool merchandise. And if you use the checkout code NDSmelted, you get 10% off your order. So NDS Melted. That's it. That's all you need to do. You go to meltedpins.com. When you go to checkout, there's a little promo code. You open that box and you put NDS Melted in there, or ND Smelted in there, and you get 10% off. Can't go wrong. And you can follow Melted Pins on social media at Melted Pins. And that is going to bring us to the very end here. Remember, you could follow us on Twitch. We're at twitch.tv/dualscreenstreams. You could follow us. You could subscribe to us on YouTube. We don't have one of them short links yet because we're still working on a subscriber count, but you can type in Nintendo Dual Screens and it'll show up. Special thanks to our contributors, Zazu Pitts of Sour No Productions, for our theme song, 16-Bit Attack. Thank you, Matt Murray of Game Stuff, and also former contributing editor and friend of the show, for our Twitch overlays. Thank you, Dan Colon of Dinosaur Machines, Hit Button Gaming, and twitch.tv/DanoMac for our Nintendo Dual Screens logo. And thank you, Andrew Douglas, for all of our podcast art. And you can follow him on social media at Angimoto, ANGIMOTO. Andy, before we go,
yes,
is there anything you want to tell the listeners?
Yeah, you know what's coming up?
No,
it's
I don't.
My favorite time of the year. It's Halloween.
All Hallows Eve.
It's gay Christmas. My favorite time of the year.
Wait a minute. Christmas is pretty gay.
Yeah, but Halloween for us gays is like, that's our holiday.
Sure. Sure.
We get to be like even more eccentric than usual.
So what do we got? Do we have something special planned for All Hallows Eve?
Yes. We are going to do another themed month on the podcast.
Oh boy.
So expect 4 straight weeks of scares and spooky things that go bump in the night.
Ooh.
Or two will come crawling out of the shadows. Who knows? But yeah, we have some fun guests lined up, which we'll announce on the Twitter.
Scary.
Shortly. Spooky, scary skeletons. So yeah, I love theme months because I get to plan ahead of time.
Yeah.
And I worry about you for 4 weeks.
You know, it's really interesting that you would do a theme month when like a bunch of really important video games are also coming out.
Right. Screw them.
That's it, folks. This has been Nintendo Dual Screens, episode 118 or 17, depending on whether or not we're able to record this weekend. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you, Adam. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you, learning about your career, learning about Creature of the Well. Good luck with everything. It was an absolute blast having you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Folks, if you want to listen to this episode's post show, you could do so exclusively by being a Patreon supporter, patreon.com/NDS podcast. $5 gets you the pre and or post show each and every week. And that is it. Until next time, Andy, you take care. Adam, thank you again. And as always, please be excellent to each other.